Welcome to Sunstone Melodies of the Stillgrove Glen, a soothing and enchanting audio journey designed to gently guide you towards peaceful relaxation and restful sleep. If you find yourself enjoying the tranquil atmosphere of the Stillgrove Glen and would like to experience more stories like this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for future calming audio escapes. Before we immerse ourselves in the twilight magic of the Glen and the soft melodies of the Sunstones, we'll begin with a short, gentle breathing guidance to help you unwind and prepare for your journey. If you prefer to drift directly into the story, you can find the chapter timestamps in the description below, ready for you to begin your peaceful listening. Now take a moment to settle comfortably wherever you are. Allow your body to sink into your chair or bed, feeling fully supported and at ease. Perhaps adjust your blankets or cushions to create an even cozier space just for you. Let go of the day's thoughts and tasks. This is your time to invite stillness and quiet. Imagine yourself entering the Stillgrove Glen, where the air is soft and the sounds are gentle. Allow the humming melodies of the Sunstones to begin to wash over you, guiding you towards a state of deep and peaceful relaxation. Let's breathe together, gently and calmly. Inhale slowly through your nose, drawing in the cool twilight air of the Glen. Feel the air fill your lungs with a sense of peace and calm. Then exhale slowly and softly through your mouth, like a gentle sigh of contentment. With each breath, feel your body becoming a little softer, a little heavier, releasing any tension or holding. Imagine the warm, golden light of the Sunstones gently bathing you, soothing every muscle and calming every nerve. Visualize the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow that dance and drift like peaceful thoughts. If your mind wanders, that's perfectly natural. Simply acknowledge the thought, like watching a leaf drift down a gentle stream in the Stillgrove Glen, and then gently guide your attention back to your breath, or to the sound of my voice, or to the imagined melodies of the Sunstones. There's nothing you need to do now, nothing you need to focus on, except to simply listen and allow the story to unfold around you, carrying you deeper into rest. Feel the gentle rhythm of the Glen, the steady pulse of peace that emanates from the ancient Sunstones. Let it carry away any worries or concerns, any lingering tensions of the day. Allow yourself to be enveloped by the harmony of the Stillgrove Glen, and let the magic of its twilight and its melodies lead you into a serene and restful sleep. Now let us begin our journey into the heart of the Stillgrove Glen, where the Sunstone melodies await to lull you into a peaceful slumber. Chapter 1. The Whispering Twilight. Lyra had walked for many days, the dust of the road clinging to her worn boots and the strings of her lute feeling heavy against her shoulder. She longed for rest, for a place where the constant hum of the world would fade into a gentle quiet. As she crested a small rise, she saw it a dip in the landscape, a place where the trees grew denser, their leaves interweaving to create a canopy so thick that the afternoon sun seemed barely to penetrate. A signpost, moss-covered and almost illegible, pointed towards Stillgrove Glen, a whisper of a name, promising stillness, promising groves. Lyra, with a sigh of hope, turned onto the path that led into the glen. The air changed instantly as she stepped beneath the trees. It was cooler here, the air thick with a damp sweetness she couldn't quite place, like rain on warm earth mixed with the subtle perfume of unseen blossoms. The sunlight, which had been glaring on the open road, was now diffused, filtered through layers of leaves to create a perpetual twilight. Everything was softened, muted, as if the very light itself was hushed. The sounds of the outside world, the distant bleating of sheep, the rumble of a cart on the road vanished, replaced by a profound stillness, broken only by the gentle rustle of leaves in a breeze so light it was almost imperceptible. As Lyra walked deeper into the glen, she began to notice a faint sound, a low, continuous hum that seemed to vibrate not just in her ears, but in the very ground beneath her feet. It wasn't a jarring sound, not a noise that demanded attention, but a subtle resonance, like the deep note of a cello held for a long, comforting moment. She paused, tilting her head, listening. The hum seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once, woven into the very fabric of the glen. It was a soothing sound, a sound that seemed to ease the tension in her shoulders, to quiet the restless thoughts that had been circling in her mind for days. She pushed aside a curtain of ivy, revealing a small clearing bathed in a soft, golden light. It wasn't sunlight, not directly, but something else, something emanating from within the clearing itself. And there they were, nestled amongst the roots of ancient trees, embedded in the mossy ground, small stones that glowed with a warm inner light. They were not brightly luminous, but shone with a gentle radiance, like embers in a dying fire, or fireflies caught in amber. These were the source of the hum, she realized, the source of the gentle vibration that permeated the glen. Sunstones, perhaps, she mused, the name forming unbidden in her mind. Lyra stepped into the clearing, drawn by the gentle light and the soothing hum. The ground beneath her feet was soft and yielding, covered in a thick carpet of moss that felt like walking on velvet. She knelt beside one of the sunstones, reaching out a tentative hand. The stone was smooth and cool to the touch, yet radiated a subtle warmth that seeped into her fingertips. As her fingers brushed against its surface, the humming sound seemed to intensify, and a wave of gentle warmth flowed through her hand and up her arm, spreading through her chest like a comforting embrace. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth and the hum wash over her. The scent of damp earth and sweet blossoms was stronger here, mingled with a subtle, earthy fragrance that reminded her of chamomile tea. She could hear the gentle murmur of water nearby, a small stream perhaps, adding another layer of quiet sound to the tranquil atmosphere of the glen. All weariness, all the anxieties of travel seemed to melt away in the gentle presence of the sunstones and the hushed twilight of the glen. She opened her eyes and looked around the clearing. It was small, intimate, enclosed by ancient trees whose branches reached overhead like protective arms. Dappled light danced on the mossy ground, creating shifting patterns of light and shadow that seemed to breathe with the gentle hum of the sunstones. It was a place of profound peace, a sanctuary from the world, a hidden haven where the very air seemed to whisper of rest and tranquility. Lyra knew with a certainty that settled deep within her heart that she had found the respite she had been seeking. Here, in the Stillgrove Glen, she could finally rest and perhaps find something more. With a sigh of contentment, Lyra settled down beside the Sunstones, leaning her back against the cool, mossy trunk of an ancient tree. The humming melody enveloped her, a gentle lullaby woven from the earth and the light. She closed her eyes again, feeling the soft moss beneath her, the cool air on her skin, the warmth of the sunstone radiating through her hand. The whispering twilight of the Stillgrove Glen embraced her, promising peace, promising rest, promising a stillness deeper than any she had known before. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Sunstones. Lyra awoke slowly, disoriented for a moment, unsure where she was. Then the gentle hum of the Sunstones, the soft moss beneath her cheek, the cool twilight air, it all returned, grounding her in the peaceful reality of the Stillgrove Glen. She stretched languidly, feeling the stiffness of travel begin to ease from her muscles. The air was fresh and clean, carrying the delicate scent of dew-kissed leaves and the subtle sweetness of night-blooming flowers. The stream she had heard last night murmured nearby, a gentle, constant sound that seemed to weave itself into the Sunstone's melody. She sat up, brushing moss from her tunic, and looked around the clearing with fresh eyes. The twilight was the same as yesterday, a soft, diffused light that seemed to emanate from the glen itself rather than filtering from above. The Sunstones glowed with their gentle, golden light, their humming melody a constant, soothing presence. She noticed more details now, the delicate veins in the leaves overhead, the intricate patterns of moss on the tree trunks, the tiny luminous mushrooms that dotted the forest floor like scattered stars. Everything in the glen seemed to possess a quiet beauty, a gentle grace. Driven by curiosity, Lyra rose and walked towards the stream. It was small, barely more than a brook, but its water was crystal clear, flowing over smooth, rounded stones. The sound of its gentle gurgle was like a soft, whispered conversation, adding another layer of tranquility to the glen's atmosphere. She knelt by the bank, cupping her hands and drinking deeply. The water was cool and refreshing, with a faint, sweet taste that lingered on her tongue. It felt invigorating yet calming at the same time, like the essence of the glen itself. As she explored further, Lyra noticed that the Sunstones were not confined to the clearing. They were scattered throughout the glen, nestled amongst tree roots, hidden in mossy hollows, even partially submerged in the stream, their gentle light glowing beneath the clear water. Wherever they were, the humming melody seemed to resonate, creating pockets of tranquility throughout the glen. She wondered what they were, these mysterious stones, and how they came to be here in this hidden, twilight place. Returning to the clearing, Lyra retrieved her flute from her pack. It felt lighter now, somehow, as if the peace of the glen had already begun to seep into her weary spirit. She held the flute to her lips and began to play a simple melody, a slow, gentle tune that echoed the quiet rhythm of the stream and the soothing hum of the Sunstones. As the notes drifted through the twilight air, she noticed something remarkable. The humming of the Sunstones seemed to shift, subtly weaving itself into her melody, creating a harmonious blend of sound, a gentle duet between her flute and the stones themselves. She experimented further, playing different melodies, changing tempo and rhythm. Each time the Sunstones responded, their hum adapting, echoing, harmonizing with her music. It was as if they were listening, as if they possessed a kind of quiet sentience, a gentle responsiveness to sound. A feeling of wonder filled Lyra, a sense of connection to something ancient and magical. She played for a long time, lost in the gentle interplay of her flute and the Sunstone Melodies, the twilight air filled with a soothing symphony of peace. As the hours passed, Lyra noticed small, luminous creatures beginning to appear in the glen. They were like fireflies, but gentler, their light softer, more diffused. They drifted through the twilight air, their tiny lights blinking in slow rhythmic pulses like miniature stars come down to earth. They seemed drawn to her music, gathering around her as she played, their gentle lights dancing in time with the melodies. They were shy creatures, flitting away if she moved too suddenly, but their presence added another layer of enchantment to the glen, a sense of gentle, living magic. As dusk, or rather, the deepening of the twilight began to settle over the glen, Lyra felt a profound sense of peace and contentment. The weariness of her journey had completely dissipated, replaced by a quiet calm, a gentle lightness of spirit. The Stillgrove Glen, with its whispering twilight, its humming sunstones, its murmuring stream, and its shy, luminous creatures, had offered her not just rest, but a kind of healing she hadn't realized she needed. As the sunstones glowed softly in the deepening twilight, she knew she had found a place of true magic, a sanctuary for the soul, a haven of peace in a world that often felt too loud and too hurried. Chapter 3. Learning the Lullabies. Each day in the Stillgrove Glen unfolded in a gentle rhythm, dictated by the soft light and the soothing hum of the sunstones. Lyra awoke with the twilight, spent her days exploring the glen and playing her flute, and drifted to sleep again as the twilight deepened. Time seemed to slow down here, to lose its urgency, replaced by a sense of timeless peace. She felt herself becoming attuned to the glen's gentle rhythm, her breath deepening, her movement slowing, her mind quieting. She spent hours observing the sunstones, trying to understand their magic. She noticed that each stone seemed to have its own unique hum, a subtle variation in tone and resonance. Some hummed with a deep, resonant note, like the low drone of a bumblebee, others with a higher, more ethereal melody, like the chime of tiny bells. Together, their individual hums wove into a complex, harmonious chorus that filled the glen with a constant sense of calm. She began to think, beside a cluster of sunstones near the stream. She felt a shift in the air, a subtle change in the energy of the glen. A gentle breeze, warmer than the usual cool air of the twilight, rustled through the leaves, carrying with it a new scent, a fragrance both earthy and ethereal, like sandalwood and blooming jasmine mingled together. She looked up and saw for the first time something she hadn't noticed before: faint, shimmering forms, translucent and indistinct, moving amongst the trees. They were shy, elusive, glimpsed only at the edges of her vision, like heat haze on a summer day. But she sensed their presence, a gentle, benevolent awareness that seemed to watch her with quiet curiosity. Forest spirits, she thought, the ancient guardians of the Stillgrove, drawn forth by the music of the Sunstone Lullabies. A feeling of reverence and awe filled her, a sense of being in the presence of something truly ancient and magical, something deeply connected to the heart of the glen. She continued to play, her lullaby becoming softer, more reverent, a gentle offering to the unseen guardians of this peaceful place. As the twilight deepened, the forest spirits seemed to become a little bolder, their shimmering forms becoming slightly more distinct. She saw glimpses of graceful, flowing shapes, like wisps of mist given form, their outlines shifting and shimmering in the soft light. They didn't speak, didn't make any sound, but she felt their gentle presence, a quiet acceptance, a silent welcome. They seemed to emanate a sense of deep peace, a tranquility that mirrored and amplified the calming atmosphere of the glen. Lyra played her lullabies until the twilight deepened into near darkness, the sunstones glowing softly around her, the glen lights dancing in the air, the forest spirits watching from the shadows. She felt completely at peace, enveloped by the gentle magic of the still grove, accepted by its ancient guardians, soothed by its humming melodies. She knew now that her music was more than just a pastime, more than just a source of comfort for herself. It was a bridge, a connection to the heart of the glen, a way to communicate with its hidden spirit, to weave her own peace with the ancient tranquility of this magical place. And as she drifted to sleep that night, lulled by the soft hum of the sunstones and the gentle whispers of the glen, she knew that she had found her true purpose here in the whispering twilight of the Stillgrove Glen. Chapter 4. The Forest Spirits Awake. The days that followed were filled with a deepening sense of wonder and connection for Lyra. Her lullabies became more intricate, more attuned to the subtle nuances of the Sunstone Melodies and the gentle presence of the forest spirits. She learned to listen not just with her ears, but with her heart, feeling the vibrations of the glen, sensing the rhythms of its ancient magic, allowing the still grove itself to guide her music. The forest spirits became more visible, more tangible, their shimmering forms gradually taking on more distinct shapes, though they remained elusive, shy, and always gentle. She began to recognize individual spirits, to sense their unique energies, their subtle personalities. There was one who seemed particularly drawn to the higher, more ethereal melodies of the Sunstones, its form shimmering with a light, airy grace. Another seemed to prefer the deeper, more resonant hums, its presence feeling grounded, rooted like an ancient tree itself. They communicated not with words, but with feelings, with subtle shifts in the air, with gentle rustling of leaves, with the soft pulsing of the Glen Lights. Lyra learned to understand their silent language, to feel their gentle presence, to sense their quiet gratitude for her music. One evening, as she played a new lullaby, a melody of deep peace and gentle healing, she felt a wave of warmth emanate from the Sunstones, a warmth that seemed to spread throughout the glen, enveloping everything in a comforting embrace. The Glen Lights pulsed brighter, their soft lights filling the twilight air with a luminous glow. The forest spirits emerged more fully from the shadows, their forms becoming clearer, more defined. They were not human-like, but ethereal beings of light and mist, their shapes fluid and ever-shifting, yet possessing a serene and gentle beauty. They gathered around Lyra as she played, their presence filling the clearing with a palpable sense of peace and ancient magic. She felt a connection to them, a sense of shared tranquility, a feeling of belonging that resonated deep within her soul. The lullaby flowed from her flute, a melody of gratitude, of reverence, of deep, abiding peace. As she played, she noticed that the forest spirits were responding to her music in a new way. They weren't just listening, they were interacting, their shimmering forms swirling gently around her, their presence weaving itself into the very fabric of the lullaby. One of the spirits, the one she sensed was drawn to the higher melodies, drifted closer to her, its form shimmering with an especially bright light. It extended a delicate mist-like tendril towards her flute, a gentle gesture of connection, of acceptance. Lyra paused her playing for a moment, holding her breath, her heart filled with awe. The spirit's tendril brushed against her flute, and a wave of energy flowed through her, a sensation of pure, unadulterated peace, a feeling of deep, profound healing. It was as if the spirit was blessing her music, imbuing it with its own ancient magic, its own tranquil essence. She resumed playing, her lullaby now infused with this new energy, this added layer of magic. The forest spirits swirled around her, their forms glowing with a soft inner light, their presence radiating a palpable sense of gratitude and peace. She played until the twilight deepened into night, the glen filled with the harmonious blend of her music, the Sunstone Melodies, the Glen Lights, and the gentle presence of the forest spirits. As she finally lowered her flute, a profound silence settled over the glen, a silence filled with a deep, resonant peace, a silence that spoke volumes. The forest spirits lingered for a while longer, their forms shimmering in the soft light of the Sunstones and the Glen Lights, their presence radiating tranquility. Then slowly, gently, they began to fade, their forms dissolving back into the shadows, their essence merging once more with the ancient magic of the Stillgrove. But Lyra knew they were still there, still present, their gentle guardianship a constant, comforting presence in the Twilight Glen. And as she drifted to sleep that night, lulled by the lingering echoes of her lullaby and the soft hum of the Sunstones, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a profound understanding of the magic she had found and the peace she had been given in the heart of the Stillgrove Glen. Chapter 5. Blessings of the Stillgrove. The time came, as it always does, when Lyra knew she must leave the Stillgrove Glen. The peace she had found there had healed her weariness, calmed her spirit, and filled her heart with a gentle joy. She carried the melodies of the Sunstones within her, the memory of the Glen Lights dancing in the twilight air, the silent blessing of the forest spirits echoing in her soul. But the world beyond the glen beckoned, and she knew she must share the peace she had found, to carry the lullabies of the Stillgrove to those who needed them. On her final morning in the glen, she awoke with a sense of quiet gratitude. The twilight air was soft and still, the sunstones humming their gentle melodies, the stream murmuring its peaceful song. She rose and walked to the clearing where she had first encountered the Sunstones, the place that had become her sanctuary, her haven of peace. She sat beside the largest of the Sunstones, the one that hummed with the deepest, most resonant melody, and took out her flute. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, drawing in the peaceful air of the glen, feeling the gentle vibrations of the Sunstones, sensing the quiet presence of the forest spirits. Then she began to play her final lullaby, a melody that encompassed all the peace and gratitude she felt, a song of farewell and blessing, a heartfelt offering to the Stillgrove and its gentle guardians. She wove all the melodies of the Sunstones into her music, echoing their individual hums, blending them with her own flute notes, creating a rich, harmonious tapestry of sound. As she played, the air seemed to shimmer with an even greater intensity. The Glen Lights danced more brightly, and the forest spirits emerged more fully than ever before. They gathered around her in the clearing, their forms luminous and distinct, their presence radiating a palpable sense of peace and blessing. They listened intently as she played, their silent attention a profound gift, a recognition of the connection they had forged, the shared tranquility they had found together. The lullaby flowed from her flute, a melody of love and gratitude, of farewell and hope, a song of peace that resonated deep within the heart of the Stillgrove. When she reached the final notes of the lullaby, a profound silence settled over the glen, a silence deeper and more resonant than any she had experienced before. The forest spirits drifted closer, their forms swirling gently around her, their presence almost tangible, like a soft embrace. Then the spirit she had connected with most deeply, the one of higher melodies and airy grace, approached her, its form shimmering with a radiant light. It extended its mist-like tendril once more, this time not just to her flute, but to her heart. The tendril touched her chest, and a wave of warmth, of pure, unconditional love, flowed through her, filling her entire being with a sense of profound peace and joy. It was a blessing, she knew, a gift from the Stillgrove, a lasting imprint of its gentle magic, a source of strength and solace that she could carry with her always. The spirit lingered for a moment longer, its luminous form radiating peace, then slowly, gently, it began to fade, dissolving back into the twilight air, followed by the other forest spirits, their presence merging once more with the ancient magic of the glen. Lyra sat in the clearing for a long time after they had gone, feeling the warmth of the blessing in her heart, listening to the soft hum of the Sunstones, breathing in the peaceful air of the Stillgrove. She knew she was leaving a part of herself behind, but she was also taking something precious with her, the peace of the glen, the melodies of the Sunstones, the blessing of the forest spirits. She rose, packed her flute and her lute, and turned to take one last look at the clearing, at the Stillgrove Glen, her sanctuary of peace. With a grateful heart and a quiet smile, she turned and walked away, carrying the lullabies of the Stillgrove within her, ready to share their gentle magic with the world, one peaceful melody at a time. The whispering twilight of the Stillgrove Glen remained behind her, a hidden haven of peace, a source of lasting calm, forever humming its gentle lullaby.